My girlfriend secretly planned to reject my proposal on camera in front of 40 people, then her friend accidentally projected the entire group chat on an 8-foot wall at the cookout. I thought I had a solid life and a real future ahead of me, until my girlfriend tried to hijack my career news and turn it into her own personal production, and it all came apart in front of 40 people at a cookout. Let me walk you back to where everything started. I've spent almost 6 years as a water infrastructure compliance analyst. I already know, sounds incredibly dry. The short version is, I review field reports, dig into old municipal water systems, and handle all the regulatory filings that keep treatment plants from catching EPA violations. It's real work, it matters, and I was genuinely good at it. For years I'd been building towards something without fully understanding that's what I was doing. Monday morning, I opened my inbox and found an email from my regional director. Subject line, REL Lead Director, Southeast Remediation Initiative. I had to read it twice. 4-state EPA program, brand new federal contract. They wanted me running the compliance side out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Salary jumping from $68,000 to $94,000 a year. Full relocation package covered. The catch was a deadline, answer by the following Friday. 11 days. The cookout came the Saturday right after that. It was thrown together quickly to celebrate the news, because Brianna had already called her mom the same night the offer landed, while I was still sitting at the dinner table, still processing it, because Brianna's family doesn't sit on anything. 6 years of steady work had all been building to this. My supervisor had told me just the week before that I was the most dependable person in that office since the day I walked in. I hadn't understood what he was setting up. Now I did. I sat with that email for a few minutes and just let the weight of it settle. I came home that evening and told my girlfriend Brianna over dinner. Laid out the whole thing, the title, what the role actually was, the salary, the timeline. I was genuinely, visibly excited. I don't perform excitement well, so when it's real, people can see it. She put her fork down. Wait, they want you gone by next week? Then, before I'd even finished answering, she pulled out her phone and started searching Charlotte real estate. I watched her type Charlotte NC cost of living while I was still mid-sentence. I kept talking. She kept scrolling. Then she glanced up and said, "Do we know anyone there?" Which is not the same as asking what the job actually was. I finished explaining. She nodded in that halfway way where someone's listening just enough to look polite. Then she asked whether Charlotte had a good airport. She did eventually congratulate me, the way someone does when they realize they forgot to say the obvious thing and have to double back. "That's great, babe. Really great." Then she looked back at her phone and said, almost to herself, "I wonder if this messes up our spring plans." I'd been with Brianna for 2 years by then. She was an event coordinator for a mid-size venue company, weddings, corporate dinners, galas. She was legitimately talented at it. She had this instinct for staging, for reading how a moment looked from 20 feet away, for making things feel curated even when they weren't. I'd always admired that quality. I was beginning to understand what it actually meant. Before she went to bed that night, she said one thing: we'd have to work out a lot of things first. Then she walked down the hall without asking a single question about the actual job, not what the program was, not which states it covered, not whether I was anxious or energized or some mix of both. 2 years together, and she went to sleep without once asking about the work itself. I stayed at the kitchen table after she left. The late phone calls had been sitting in the back of my head for a while. 9:30 at night, her bedroom door closed, always just work stuff. Event coordinators talk to clients during business hours, vendors, caterers, venues, all of that. Those calls happen before 6. The ones happening at 9:30 aren't about table centerpieces. I'd been letting it sit. That night, alone at that table, I stopped letting it sit. Tuesday evening, she came home carrying a specific kind of energy. Deliberate. Settled. Like she'd spent the whole day deciding how a conversation was going to go and was fully prepared to have it. She set her bag down, didn't turn on the TV, and she always turned on the TV. She asked me to come sit at the kitchen table. I sat. She stood across from me, leaned against the counter with her arms folded, and open with the smile, chin level, slight head tilt. That smile appeared whenever she was about to say something she'd already decided was reasonable, and she expected you to fall in line. I'd seen it before. I just hadn't had a name for it until that moment. She said she'd been thinking about Charlotte. She was open to making the move work, but she needed to feel secure before she turned her whole life upside down. Her family would have questions. Her friends would worry. People will talk if we just pick up and go somewhere together with no plan, no real commitment. It doesn't look right. I asked what she was actually asking for. She wanted me to propose at the cookout that Saturday. Her parents were already hosting it at their place. The whole extended family, neighbors, her entire crowd, assembled in under 48 hours because Brianna had called Diane the night the offer arrived while I was still processing it at the dinner table. If you propose there in front of everyone, I'll pack my bags and come to Charlotte. It has to be public. My family needs to see you're serious, and we announce it the same day. I'm not sitting on it quietly. I need the ring before we even start looking at houses down there. If you don't have one yet, go get one. I don't care if it's a placeholder. I just need the picture. Then, a beat. It's not a big ask. And there was the head tilt. I looked at her for a moment. Then I told her, quietly and without any heat in my voice, that I wasn't going to be pushed into a proposal through deadline pressure. That's not how I operated. That wasn't the kind of proposal I wanted it to be. And honestly, she should want something better than that, too. She shifted tone immediately. Softer now, leaning forward. I need security, Cole. I'm not blowing up my whole life without commitment. That's not unreasonable. I deserve to feel certain before I sacrifice this much. My family needs to see that you're serious. Every single line sounded reasonable on its own. Stacked together, it was just pressure dressed up in vulnerability. And she was building it fast. The thing that got to me wasn't the demand itself. It was how precise it was. A condition for the ring, a condition for the announcement, a condition for the house hunt. This wasn't what someone scared of losing their relationship sounds like. There was no fear in it. There were terms. I told her I heard what she was saying about wanting certainty. I didn't tell her what I was planning to do. I said I'd think about it. She walked out mildly frustrated, not shattered, not frightened. When she left that room, there was zero fear of losing me in her expression. Just the low-level irritation of someone whose schedule hadn't resolved the way they'd planned. She looked like someone adjusting an agenda. Not someone standing at the edge of a loss. One thought, quiet, once she went to bed, she's not afraid of me saying no. She's afraid of missing her window to make a scene. I didn't sleep well. Not because I was conflicted, I wasn't, not anymore. I was just thinking through what I needed to handle before Saturday, and in what order. Wednesday, Brianna left early. I was working from home. Around noon, my phone buzzed from a contact saved as Kelsey, one of Brianna's friends. The loud one. The kind who accidentally blows things up thinking she's helping. I figured it was something about the cookout. I opened it. It was a screenshot, sent to the wrong person, clearly. I could tell right away it was a group chat screenshot, a thread between Brianna, Megan, and Tasha in a thread labeled the one's core. Kelsey wasn't in that thread, which meant Brianna had sent it to her at some point, and Kelsey, sorting files for the video she was building, had forwarded the wrong thing to the wrong name. I could almost picture the exact moment she realized, that tiny pause after delivered shows up in the wrong thread. I read it. The thread was from Tuesday night, timestamped after Brianna had gone to bed. Brianna had opened the chat by telling the group I was going to propose on Saturday, with a certainty she had absolutely no basis for. Just he's doing it at the cookout. Megan had replied instantly, saying she'd already visited the backyard at a family dinner 2 weeks earlier and had scouted the best filming angle. Pointed to a corner near the fence on the left side. The whole camera strategy was mapped out, where to stand, how to frame the crowd, when to start recording. Tasha had written that she was going to work on Brianna's mom Diane ahead of time. Warm her up was the phrase she used. Then, in a separate message directly to Brianna, say I need safety, not I need a ring. It plays better. Trust me. Megan followed up with advice on filming people crying in outdoor afternoon sunlight. Then Brianna, if my mom cries, he'll cave. She's basically my cheat code. Her name. Her avatar. Her words. On a screen I was holding in my own kitchen. I kept reading. Further down, Brianna confirmed she wasn't going to Charlotte, ever. Moving was never actually on the table for her. There was someone else in her life, local. She used his name once, casually, the way you use a name when it's been in your regular vocabulary for a while. Then she spelled out what Saturday was really for. She expected me to propose. She was sure of it. And she was planning to turn it down in front of everyone. The public rejection wasn't something I was supposed to deliver. It was hers to execute. Reject the proposal with 40 witnesses and Megan's camera pointed at her face, and walk away with the story of a woman honest enough to say no when it mattered. Someone who'd had to break a man's heart because she simply deserved better. Megan said she'd have the highlight reel up before midnight. Tasha said narrative control from the first second was everything. Then, at the very bottom, he has no idea. I sat there holding that screen for a moment. 2 years of my life, the house, the table I was sitting at, all of it, had just been her backdrop. I was the third act of a story she'd written entirely for someone else's approval. I put the phone down, picked it back up, screenshotted every visible message, emailed all of it to my personal account, and set the phone down again. 30 seconds later, Kelsey was flooding my messages with apologies. Please ignore that. Then, okay, I know how this looks. Then, please just text me back so I know you're not going to do anything. 4 messages in under a minute. I didn't respond to any of them. Her panic wasn't strategic, she'd understood enough from a quick glance to know this could explode, but Kelsey's move in a crisis isn't to take responsibility. It's to freeze and hope the universe rewinds. There was never a single sign that Brianna found out Kelsey had sent it to me. Her behavior across the next 3 days was exactly what it would have been if that text had never reached me at all. Kelsey had decided her best play was to pretend it never happened and pray for a miracle. I sat at that kitchen table for about 10 minutes, not shaking, just cold and done. Then I called Ray. Ray is my best friend from college. He does land surveying for a civil engineering firm, moves quietly, and doesn't overreact to anything. I walked him through the whole thing, the offer, the ultimatum, the group chat, the name she'd dropped once like it was nothing. He listened without jumping in. When I finished, he said, "So what are we doing?" That's exactly why I called Ray. That evening, Brianna was out for a cookout planning dinner with her crew. She'd mentioned it Monday, before any of this. I used the time. I went through the house like I was running a checklist. I bought it outright 3 years before I ever met Brianna, solely in my name, no co-signers. Her name was on nothing, no paperwork, no accounts, nothing tied to the property. I pulled what mattered, documents, hard drive backups, the box from my dad's estate. Everything went into the trunk. I packed a go bag, changed every password one by one. Clean lines before Saturday. I texted Ray, "Cookout Saturday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You coming?" He replied in about 40 seconds, obviously. I went back inside, made dinner, put something on TV. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you what. Some nature documentary I wasn't actually watching. Brianna came home around 9, cheerful, a little distracted. Said the planning dinner was fun. Said Kelsey had pulled together something really special for Saturday. I said I was sure it was going to be memorable. Then I was asleep before she was. Thursday morning, I accepted the position in writing and started the relocation process. Lease signed, movers booked, temp housing confirmed, clean steps, no drama. I'd beaten the company's deadline by 8 days. That felt right. I wasn't taking this job in reaction to any of this. I was taking it because it was the right call for me, and that distinction mattered to me. Friday, I went into the office, briefed my supervisor on the Charlotte transition timeline, confirmed the onboarding schedule. He shook my hand and told me the team down there was lucky to be getting me. I said I was looking forward to it. I meant every word. I drove home Friday evening and passed the house without stopping. Looped the neighborhood for maybe 20 minutes just to clear my head, then came back and parked. Brianna was inside cooking. She asked if I was nervous about the next day. I said no. She read that as confidence. It was something else entirely. One thing I need to explain about Kelsey before we get to the cookout, because she's basically the entire reason this unfolded the way it did. Kelsey makes behind-the-scenes videos for every major occasion involving someone she loves. Not just a photo slideshow, she builds a whole package: group chat screenshots, planning messages, inside jokes. She includes it as a special segment because she genuinely believes showing how something came together is more meaningful than just the polished final version. She takes real pride in it. I'd watched it go sideways once before. At a friend's birthday, she included a planning screenshot where the birthday girl's sister had written, "Do not invite mom's boyfriend." I swear to God. The whole room went quiet. Kelsey laughed. The sister did not. She'd asked everyone in the planning thread to send her anything fun from the chat, planning messages, funny back and forths, whatever they wanted included in the behind-the-scenes segment. Brianna sent her a screen recording of the harmless cookout thread, menu items, lawn chair logistics, who was bringing what. What Brianna didn't account for was that the recording had lingered in her core chat long enough to drift through a solid stretch of those messages before snapping back. Not for minutes, but long enough to be fully readable if it ever played on something bigger than a phone screen. Kelsey didn't catch it. Kelsey doesn't watch things for meaning. She watches to make sure the file plays. She used the full recording, let it scroll, because she felt the scrolling looked more natural than individual screenshots. She confirmed it played. That was the entire review process. Mid-July heat, about 40 people. Frank had the grill fired up since noon. It wasn't even 2 o'clock when we arrived, and a portable projector was aimed at the white cinder block wall behind the pergola. He'd mounted a flat screen under that pergola 2 summers before for outdoor sports and just never took it down. Frank is a grill first, ask questions later kind of man. He lights the coals at noon for a 4 o'clock event because he likes having control over at least one thing. Diane had been cooking things that didn't even need to be cooked, just to have more to put out. She hugged me when I arrived and said she was so proud of me. That hug was honestly the hardest part of the whole afternoon. Kelsey hovered near her laptop like a proud stage manager. USB drive on a lanyard around her neck. She'd already told at least 4 different people within earshot that she'd made a little something for today, and each time she said it, her volume crept up a notch. She had the energy of someone who was extremely proud of a secret they were physically struggling not to fully explain to strangers. Megan arrived and walked directly to the far left corner of the yard near the fence. She adjusted her position twice, framed the crowd with the white wall in the background, and checked her lighting angle. Her lips moved briefly, 3, 2, 1, confirming the shot. Then she tucked her phone in her pocket and started chatting up someone's cousin like nothing had happened. That's Megan. She's not malicious about it. She just films every room she walks into, and the world is content. Tasha stayed near Diane inside the house for a while. She has this whole thing where she positions herself as the emotional manager of any room she's in, diagnosing everyone, reading the temperature. I could see her through the sliding glass door, hand resting on Diane's arm, deliberate low voice, getting everything calibrated exactly where she needed it. Brianna moved through the yard in a yellow sundress, easy and warm, laughing at all the right moments. She was performing, but she was genuinely skilled at it. Staging moments was literally her job. At one point she pulled Diane into a conversation circle, turned her toward the pergola, then stepped back just slightly so her mom became the visual centerpiece. Diane smiled and never noticed she'd been repositioned. Earlier, Brianna had told me quietly, almost proudly, "My mom is going to absolutely lose it when it happens. She'll cry." I'd filed that away. It landed completely differently now that I'd read the cheat code message. She caught me watching her once across the yard and gave me a small, private smile, the kind made for an audience. I gave her one back. Didn't cost me a thing. Ry had stayed a few feet from me since we got there. Quiet, holding a cup of something, watching the yard the way he'd watch a job site. At one point he leaned in and said, "Yo, Megan hasn't put that phone down once." I told him I'd noticed. Around 4 o'clock, Brianna caught my eye from across the yard and held the look for 2 full seconds. Then she gave me the nod toward the blank white wall. Her showtime signal. I gave her a single nod back, completely still. "Ray," I said it quiet. "You good?" "Yeah." Kelsey clapped her hands twice and basically shouted across the entire yard that she'd put together a little something and everyone needed to come gather because it was really special and she'd worked so hard on it and there was a behind-the-scenes segment from the planning process. She said all of that in about 8 seconds, and the sentence structure suffered accordingly. People gathered. Frank came around from the grill with tongs still in his hand. Diane moved to the front of the crowd nearest to where the image would hit the wall. Brianna set her phone face up on the patio table next to Kelsey's laptop, that whole "I'm fully present, not scrolling" gesture, then smoothed her dress like someone stepping into a scene they'd rehearsed. Kelsey hit play. The first 45 seconds were exactly what you'd expect. Photos of me and Brianna across 2 years, a beach trip, a birthday dinner, a shot from a friend's wedding where we both looked decent. A screenshot of the promotion email, subject line visible. Acoustic guitar underneath it all. Soft and gentle. People smiled. Diane put a hand over her heart. Frank nodded once, the way he nods when something lands right. Then the projection cut. Not a fade, a hard cut. The acoustic music kept playing underneath, which somehow made it more disorienting, not less. The wall was now showing a phone screen. The one's core at the top, 3 names below it, and text messages beginning to scroll the way they do in a screen recording, steady and automatic, like they had a destination. It didn't flash and fix itself. It just sat there in that thread long enough for people to actually read it. Nobody processed it immediately. There was a beat, 3 full seconds, maybe, where 40 people watched a group chat scroll across an 8-foot wall and tried to figure out exactly what they were looking at. Someone near the back read a line out loud, more to themselves than anyone, low voice, not knowing how far it carried. That was all it took. The row in front turned back toward the screen. Phones came up everywhere, not just Megan's. 2 cousins raised theirs. Frank's brother-in-law started recording without pretending otherwise. When something like that hits at that size in somebody's backyard, you don't ask first. You just film. The recording kept scrolling. Megan's message about her camera position and the angle she'd already scoped. Tasha's note about Diane, warming her up beforehand, emotional maximum effect. Then the scroll slowed and stopped on a single message. Brianna's name and avatar at the top of the bubble. Her words at full size: "If my mom cries, he'll cave." She's basically my cheat code. The acoustic guitar was still going underneath it. That combination, soft music, a July afternoon, that sentence at 8 feet, it just didn't register properly at first. It needed a second. The second passed. Diane made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Brianna was already moving, crossed the yard fast toward Kelsey's laptop on the patio table, heels punching into the grass, not caring. Her Uncle Joe, Frank's brother, big guy, always laughing, stepped sideways to let her through and accidentally planted himself directly in her path. Arms spread wide in this cheerful whoa, let it play gesture. He thought she was embarrassed by the attention. He had no idea what was on the wall behind him. He was still grinning. Brianna stopped hard, spun back toward the crowd. Her face was cycling through expressions faster than she could manage them. The composure she'd carried all afternoon, gone, just gone. Kelsey panicked out loud. Of course she did. Wait, no. That's not the clip I meant to play. Loud enough for every single person in that yard. There's no worse thing she could have said in that moment. But Kelsey doesn't script herself. That is the entire problem. Megan had not stopped filming. She'd pivoted smoothly from her original corner to track Brianna's movement, adjusting her angle without breaking stride. At some point she grabbed the arm of the cousin she'd been chatting with and whispered, "Oh my God, keep rolling. This is insane." She was capturing perfect footage of the worst moment of her best friend's life, and she was not going to miss a single frame, because content is content, and Megan is Megan. Nobody had touched Kelsey's laptop. The recording kept going. Brianna confirming she wasn't going to Charlotte. Confirming the other situation. The name used once, like it had been part of her regular vocabulary for a long time. Someone in the crowd said, "Oh my God," barely above a whisper, and immediately covered their mouth with both hands. Tasha stepped forward from near the pergola. She raised both hands and addressed the crowd with this practiced, authoritative calm. "Okay, I'm just going to name the dynamic here. What everyone is feeling right now is collective discomfort. And I think before anyone reacts, we need to understand that context always." Frank said, "Tasha, sit down." Didn't raise his voice. Just said it the way you say something when you mean it exactly and nothing more. 2 words, flat as pavement. Tasha sat down. Frank looked at his daughter. Diane hadn't moved. Still standing in the same spot where she'd been holding her hand over her heart during the photos. Looking at the screen, then at Brianna, then back at the screen. Her face wasn't showing shock. It was something slower and heavier than that, like she was rereading a document she'd trusted for years and discovering the words said something completely different from what she'd always believed. She looked at Brianna and said it quietly enough that only the 10 nearest people caught it clearly, "So I'm your weapon." Not a question. A statement. Flat, like the end of something long. Brianna started talking immediately, both hands up, voice aimed at her mom. "Mom, that's out of context. You know how group chats are. I was just venting. I didn't mean it like." Frank, looking at me now. Not at Brianna. "Don't you dare blame him for this." The yard went silent, 40 people and nobody knowing where to look. Then, from the side driveway, a car horn. Once, short. The driveway dips just enough that you can't see the backyard from the street. From the driver's seat, it probably looked like a normal Saturday afternoon. Brianna had clearly told him to come by right after the moment. The problem with plans built on timing is that timing doesn't care what you promised anyone. Brianna went completely still, hands dropping to her sides. People near the edge of the yard turned toward the sound. A gray sedan had pulled up to the end of the driveway. Window down. Guy behind the wheel on his phone. He honked once more, softer this time, not announcing himself. Just checking in. A casual beep. The kind that carries history in it. The phone she'd left face up on the patio table lit up 3 feet away. From where I stood, I could read it perfectly. One word, his name. She said his name, not shouted, said it low and sharp, aimed at the driveway like she could yank it back out of the air before anyone else processed it. Too late. Megan filmed the car. Of course she did. The crowd connected the dots in about 5 seconds. You could feel it move through the yard. Not a sound, just a collective recalibration. 40 people running the same math at the same time and landing on the same answer. Brianna's aunt leaned toward her husband and said something low. Frank's brother-in-law quietly unfolded his arms and took a step back. The guy near the gate who'd been laughing at something stopped laughing. The sedan idled. The driver glanced up from his phone, looked at 40 people staring at a gray car from a backyard, and looked back down. His hand moved toward the gear shift. Frank was staring at the driveway with the expression of a man who had just understood something he hadn't wanted to understand and was now deciding what to do with it. Diane had walked to the back of the yard near the garden beds and was standing there with her back to everyone, arms at her sides. The acoustic track from Kelsey's speaker had finally run out. Silence underneath everything now. I took one breath, looked over at Frank, then toward where Diane had gone, then out at the yard, 40 people who hadn't shown up for any of this. I accepted the relocation, I said, clear, to no one in particular and everyone at once. I'm not going to be managed through guilt. Ray was already at my shoulder. I looked at Brianna one time. She was crying. It might have been real. Honestly, I'd lost the ability to separate what was genuine from what was performed with her. And that right there was the most complete answer the afternoon had given me. I'm done. Ray and I walked to the side gate. We had to pass the end of the driveway on the way out. The gray sedan was still there, idling. The driver had finally gotten off his phone and was watching us walk past with the expression of someone who'd showed up mid-disaster and hadn't yet figured out whether he was connected to it. He was. He just didn't know it yet. We got to Ray's truck. I sat in the passenger seat and pressed my hands flat on my thighs. They hadn't been completely steady when I first got in. I noticed that, waited, and they steadied. Ray looked at me once. I said, I'm good, he said, I know. And he pulled out. We got to Ray's place and I locked everything down, contacts, passwords, financial accounts, shared apps. About 12 minutes total. Then I ate the sandwich Ray made without asking if anyone was hungry. Sunday morning, I drove to the house, met the locksmith I'd put on standby, and watched the lock get changed from the driveway. Did a final walkthrough, confirmed everything that mattered was already in my car or the storage unit, and left a one-page written notice on the kitchen counter for Brianna, retrieval terms, deadline, conditions. Then I locked the door from outside and didn't look back at it. She tried to reach me through 4 different numbers across 3 days. I read enough of the first message to confirm there was nothing in it that required a response, and I ignored everything else. A third attempt came through an email address I didn't recognize. Subject line, we need to talk. I forwarded it to the property attorney my company had connected me with for the relocation contract and flagged it as documentation, just in case. I drove to Charlotte straight after and moved into temp housing. The movers handled the rest of the house while I was already settled. A lawyer's letter arrived 11 days after the cookout. It claimed Brianna had a financial stake in the property based on her contributions to the household over 2 years, a month of rent, a rough estimate of utilities, a touch of pain and suffering rounded up to a number designed to feel expensive enough to scare me but small enough to feel worth settling. It used the phrase intentional infliction of emotional harm, which, given what had played out on that projector screen, is genuinely impressive creative writing. My attorney replied once. I was the sole owner. The purchase predated the relationship by 3 years. Her name appeared on no deed, no mortgage, no joint financial instrument of any kind. The letter walked through her actual contributions against the full cost of a living situation she'd had rent-free. The math wasn't close. It addressed the emotional distress claim by pointing out that whatever humiliation she experienced came directly from a plan she had personally built and attempted to execute in her own parents' backyard. After that, the legal noise stopped completely. Online, her crew tried to spin the story. Megan posted first, long caption about knowing your worth and protecting your peace, heavy on implication, nothing specific. Tasha posted something that included the phrase coercive control, which is remarkable given what was currently moving around on everyone's phones. Kelsey put up a semi-apology that didn't name anyone but was obviously about the whole thing, and the wording was so purely, uniquely Kelsey, earnest, a little confused, accidentally making everything worse for everyone involved, including Kelsey herself. But here's the problem with controlling a narrative when 40 people watch the evidence scroll across a wall. 40 people have phones. The footage circulated, not because anyone posted it publicly, but because half the yard had already been recording by the time the real group chat hit that screen. Megan had built a flawless record of the worst afternoon of her best friend's life, and there was no containing it. I said nothing online. When mutual friends reached out, and a few did, in that careful way where you can feel them trying to figure out which side they're supposed to be on, I told each of them the same thing. What happened was on the screen. That was all I had to say. Nothing to add, nothing to walk back. The belongings retrieval happened 12 days after the cookout, 3 days before the deadline. Brianna came with her mother. I drove back for it, 1 day there and back. Worth it to be present. I stayed in the kitchen, made coffee, caught up on work emails. I could hear them moving through the house, that careful quiet of people trying not to make noise in a place that isn't theirs anymore. Diane didn't say a word to me. Not when they arrived, not during, not when they left. She had her own version of everything to work through, and that version included seeing her daughter's words on a projector screen in front of the people she loved most. Brianna paused in the kitchen doorway on her way out and looked at me directly for the first time since the cookout. I hope you know this isn't who I actually am. I know you believe that. She left. The house sold 2 weeks later. My attorney handled the closing. I signed the paperwork digitally from my apartment. Anyway. 4 months later, mid-November. Charlotte had gone gray and cold by then. I was walking out of my office building on a Wednesday evening when I heard my name from across the parking lot. I turned. Brianna was standing at the edge of the lot in a jacket I'd never seen, arms pulled across her chest against the cold. She'd driven 4 hours. I have no idea how she found the building, LinkedIn, most likely. I hadn't thought to update my location settings. She looked like she'd been out there a while. Her expression was prepared, the way it gets when someone has rehearsed something on a long drive and is now deciding which version to actually say. I stopped walking, didn't move toward her, waited until my coworkers had peeled off to their own cars, and it was just the two of us in that part of the lot. She said she'd been trying to reach me for weeks, that there were things she needed me to hear, that I deserved a real conversation and not just silence. The other guy was gone, things had collapsed fast once everything surfaced. She said she'd realized she'd made a series of terrible decisions, and she wasn't asking me to excuse any of them, just understand them. She'd been terrified of the move, terrified of being left behind while my life shifted into something that no longer had space for her. And instead of sitting with that fear, she'd turned it into this whole thing. She was sorry. She knew that wasn't enough. I let her finish. The lot was mostly empty by then, getting dark early the way it does in November. Lot lights already on, her breath fogging slightly in the cold. She looked like someone who'd spent 4 hours in a car building up to this moment and was now watching to see if it had landed anywhere. I believe you're sorry. I meant that. She'd clearly been through something, and it showed on her. She asked if we could talk. Just talk. Even just a walk around the block. Said she needed me to see who she actually was, separate from all of it. No. She waited. Her jaw tightened slightly. There's nothing to figure out here, Brianna. I'm not carrying any of this. There's nothing to come back to. Her eyes started going. I'd seen it happen before. I knew exactly what it was supposed to do to me. I wasn't immune to it. I was just no longer on that frequency. I hope things get easier for you. I meant that too. Then I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat for a couple of minutes, hands on the wheel, not second-guessing anything, just letting it finish. Then I drove home. I got home, changed, made dinner. Second-floor apartment, east-facing windows that caught good morning light, my books on the shelves in the order I'd put them. The remediation program was running on schedule. Work that actually meant something. Brianna had handed Kelsey the screen recording herself, told her to use it for the behind-the-scenes segment, trusted that Kelsey would actually watch it and edit carefully. Kelsey never edits carefully. Anyone who'd known Kelsey for longer than a month knew that. Brianna had known her for 7 years. The apartment was warm. Outside, Charlotte in November, some traffic noise drifting up from the street below. Then quiet. It was a good quiet. One thing I never did find out, whether Diane ever actually sat down alone with Brianna and talked about that afternoon. Not the public version of events, actually talked. Whether the two of them are okay now, I genuinely don't know. I hope they are. Diane didn't deserve any of it.